What is up, guys? Top tier Yu-Gi-Oh here, and today I just wanted to have a quick discussion and just share 5 tips for how to be successful playing rogue decks at a competitive level. And spoiler alert, there is no easy way to do this. These are all hard truths. It takes a lot of work, but it is what you're going to have to do in order to win. And so you might be thinking like, who is this guy? What does he know? And I just want to say I have been playing this game competitively for a very long time. Seen a lot of success at the regional level with like 7 or 8 top 8s, numerous top 16, 32, 48, or whatever the top cut is at regionals for invites. Consistently high on the North American list for Worlds and UDS points up until last year. Decent success at ARGs, but I really wanted to do better at YCSs, and it really just saddens me to think that there might not ever be a YCS again. But back to the point, I've been playing this game competitively for a while, but I haven't always had the resources to play the best cards or the best decks. And so I have a lot of experience both playing Rogue as well as playing meta and sitting across the table and seeing what it's like to play against Rogue at high level events. And I just want to share what I've learned over the years with you guys. Also, by the way, there's not going to be anything interesting on the screen, so feel free to play this in the background. I'm probably just going to like draw some random test hands or something with a deck that I've been messing around with. But let's go ahead and get into those 5 tips for playing Rogue decks competitively. Alright, so getting into the list, the first thing that you need to do in order to play Rogue decks competitively is you need to play meta decks. And that's going to sound crazy, but you actually need to learn and understand these meta decks inside and out. And the best way to do that is to actually just play those decks. You need to learn how their plays work, how to stop them, see the game through their perspective and through their eyes, so that when you play against them, you can throw salt in their eyes. But you have to be able to play those decks and understand them to really get that perspective. And so once again, you need a deep understanding of how the top decks work. And if you only have a topical understanding or a surface level information on a deck, it'll only work maybe 80 to 90% of the time. But when you're playing Rogue, your margins are so slim that really every single game matters. You have to take every single opportunity that you have to win. And so like for technical play, if you're playing against Eldritch and all you really know about Eldritch is maybe to negate the Auroradon, since it's the main token creator, it leads to a lot of shenanigans. But now Eldritch players are making Herald of the Arclight before Auroradon so that you won't be able to negate it. And if you were holding your Veiler or something, you'd lose that game. And it's not because you made a misplay, but you might be making the best play that you're aware of. But when you're playing a Rogue deck, it's your responsibility to be sure that there aren't plays that you're unaware of. Or it's like if you're playing against Infernal Knights and you know it's great to Ash their Needle Fiber or their Sold. Well, you're gonna get outplayed when they summon Gearfried first. And we can't let that happen, so you have to see what might lead up to an early Gearfried summon so that you can maybe play around that or at least stop it. So you gotta play meta decks in order to get a good understanding of how they work. So the second thing that you need to do, number 2, is to understand the format. And this goes above and beyond just knowing how the meta decks work. You need to understand the entire format. What I mean by this is you need to understand how these decks interact with each other on a technical and theoretical level in order to find advantages that you can capitalize on, as well as things that you might want to avoid as well. And so one example of this might be that most of the decks are playing Gamma right now. And so you want to be sure that your Rogue deck does not lose if your main play gets stopped or negated by Gamma. Or something else could be that a lot of main decks are building these monster heavy boards of like Borreload Savage Dragon, Herald, Dragoon, things like that. And so Forbidden Droplets and Dark Ruler No More are becoming very, very popular. And so if you're playing a Rogue deck, you do not want your Rogue deck to lose to those cards, because then they won't have, like, the meta decks won't have to play hard to beat you because they can just beat you with the things they're already playing. And so you have to be aware of that, of what's in their main decks, in their side decks, what are the tech choices, where the format is kind of leaning and edging towards. So you have to keep up with everything. Like right now, for example, I would lean more towards Rogue decks that have strong spells and traps like Salamangreat, because your Salamangreat roars and your rages don't lose to Dark Ruler No More. They don't really lose to Forbidden Droplets. So it's kind of difficult to play around that, as well as Salamangreats have a really interesting engine, and so it's kind of difficult for decks to get used to if they haven't seen it in a while. And I know for me, what I like to do when deciding a deck is I like to do what's called a SWOT analysis, like SWOT. Not sure if you guys have heard of that or know what it is, but it's like a grid or a diagram, and you list out some things: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's what SWOT stands for, SWOT. And so it's like your strengths and weaknesses are like the internal or inherent attributes of that deck, but then opportunities and threats are external, so that's when you're really looking at the format. And so an example would be with the Shaddoll Artifact Numeron Dogmatica deck that I was playing for a while. Really loved that deck, by the way. Its strengths were that it was incredibly consistent in being able to find a way to effectively skip an opponent's turn. The weakness was the number of engine requirements and cards that were bad in simplified game states that you had to play, like the Numeron Calling, the extra networks, the extra walls. Like, you had to play a lot of cards that were like really good on turn 1 but really bad on turns 4 and 5, and that was very difficult when you were grinding out different matches. The opportunity, however, though, was that most of the meta was on combo, and so they were heavily susceptible to the fields that that deck could create with Zexal, Scythe, Winda, Punishment, and other Dogmatica things. And so that was a very big opportunity at the moment. But again, the threat was the fact that Eldritch was relatively popular too, and so we had to kind of play around that, because Eldritch had a very good matchup against that deck because of its ability to play either beatdown or control, as well as just having lore to out cards like Winda or beat over Zexal, or there's just so much that you could do with lore that it just kind of invalidated everything. Like, you negate their, or you stop them from going into their extra deck with Scythe when they played Lord Beatdown, Set Scarlet, and Conquistador, and you're still in a pretty bad position after that. And so the Eldritch matchup was really hard, and so I had to, you would have had to time when you play that deck with how popular Eldritch was at the moment. And so again, you can really love a deck, but there's no way you could play it without considering what else is going on in the format and still expect any sort of success. And so that's number 2. You need to understand the format. Number 3, the third tip is to, and I know this is going to sound very, very obvious, but you need to master your own deck. And I've already discussed how well you need to understand other decks and how well you need to understand the format, but you also need to actually master your deck. And if you don't, it's going to be very difficult to win, because once again, the margins are just very, very slim here. And so you need to understand the technical play, the rulings, the relevant game mechanics, interactions, matchups, roles, resource management. There's so many things that you have to learn and master. And if you guys are questioning any of these things, of course, just let me know and I can make a video on any or all of them. I know I definitely have a bunch of resource management videos, stuff about roles and who's to beat down, but anything else, of course, just let me know. But these are things that you have to understand about your rogue deck and about the meta. Like, if you miss out on these tiny rulings, it can be the difference between winning or losing a game, or at least being able to control the interaction with the judge to maybe save time on the clock that keeps you from getting a draw. Stuff like that can make a huge difference in your ability to top an event, or to at least maybe get your invite or have any sort of success. And so you need to keep all of those things in mind when it comes to technical play. But also with your deck building, you need to be on point with your micro deck building, macro deck building, meta deck building. And you also need to be open to all different options, because when you're playing a rogue deck, you are at a disadvantage, and so you can't close yourself off from different options. And so one thing that I see all the time, and it really drives me crazy, is seeing rogue players not want to include certain cards or engines in their deck, because it makes it like not that deck anymore. And it's like when you were playing Dangers and Lunalight decks, all the Lunalight players were saying like, oh, now this isn't Lunalights. Well, there's 20 Lunalight cards in this deck, so of course it's a Lunalight deck. Playing things that make your Lunalight cards better does not make it less of a Lunalight deck. Or it's like with the Shaddoll deck with Jet Synchron. People were saying that it's not a Shaddoll deck because it plays Jet Synchron. Well, if I play 20 Shaddoll cards and all Jet Synchron does in the deck is summon Construct, I think it's still a Shaddoll deck. And so you can't have these semantics about whether or not your deck is a deck. Like, you just have to play the deck you love and then do whatever it takes to make it better if you want to be competitive. You can't worry about stuff like that, because you don't get a purity prize for playing a pure deck. You don't get a creativity prize or any other prize aside from your record. You have to win games. That's the bottom line. And so you gotta do what it takes. And it's not to say that you have to just always add in like the best cards into your rogue deck to make it better. Like, you don't add Dogmatica and Dragoon into your Salamangreat deck and that's gonna automatically make it good. Maybe it makes it a little better, but it doesn't make it like overall better. And you have to look at everything. You have to try it out and then come to that conclusion. But you just can't You can't just up front say you're not going to play certain cards, or just automatically decide that you will play certain cards. You just have to test, in theory, your way through all of the options. So just keep your options open, you know, because anything could come up. You never know. But with that being said, the fourth thing you need to do, which is more important than it seems. A lot of people think that this isn't the case when you're playing competitively, but you also do need to just enjoy the deck that you're playing, because playing Rogue is not easy. It's significantly harder than just picking up a meta deck. I mean, already you have to do all of this work. You got to understand the other meta decks, understand the format, understand your own deck, be the master of these things, really. But if you were to just pick up a random meta deck, you'd probably do a lot better with a lot less work. But it's not as fun, and so you want to be sure that when you are playing Rogue, you're at least going to enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, I think most of us do want to enjoy the game, and it's a hobby. And while winning is a big part of how you enjoy that and perceive your time in the game, you do want to genuinely just enjoy what you're doing, you know? I think it makes it a whole lot better, and it's one of the reasons why I still play decks like Zodiacs. I mean, after playing them for so many years, especially all throughout 2017, with that being one of my best competitive Yu-Gi-Oh years for me, it really brings back so many fond memories, and just feels good to still be ending on like Trident Pass for some reason. So, you know, if you got a deck that's kind of nostalgic to you, that you enjoy, you know, play it and try to figure out different ways to make it better, different engines that maybe work, different things you can do, different interactions. And sometimes you just gotta wait for the right format as well, you know, wait for the right time to play your favorite deck, and when you do, you're gonna be ready for that format. So just keep it on the back burner. But the fifth and final tip for playing Rogue decks competitively is to just realize that you aren't going to win. Understand that your deck is inherently worse than the meta decks, and it's that way for a reason. You just kind of have to accept it. But if you are the better player, you can swing the results your way. And as a Rogue player, every single event you're at, you have the ability to do something special. When you have done the first four things, you've really set yourself up for something amazing to happen. And if you've ever believed in the heart of the cards, this is really how you activate it, and it's with hard work. And you might think that the game is mostly about luck, but I promise you, when you put the work in, you create your own luck. And I say this all the time, but I've never topped an event that I didn't expect to top. And sure, I've been wrong before, but it all starts with that belief. You need to give yourself a chance, and because you do have a chance. And so once again, you have that chance to do something special. And that's pretty much it. That's all 5 tips for you guys. You need to understand the meta decks, you need to understand the format, you need to master your own deck, have fun, but also realize that you're not going to win all the time. And just to expand on that last point just a little bit, like, if you have a deck, like the meta decks, or really just to top an event, you have to win about 70% of your matches. And let's say you have a Rogue deck that wins 40% of your matches. Well, that might mean winning 40 games out of 100. A tournament is only going to be maybe 10 or 11, maybe 12 matches max, right? Max, like at most 12 matches. Winning 40 out of 100, you just got to make sure that the 40 that you win are in that tournament. So you always have that chance, that statistical chance to do something great. And it might not be likely, but you can make it happen. And so that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, tips, tricks, what's your favorite deck? What's your favorite Rogue deck? What are you playing right now? What are you having the most fun with right now? Let me know down in the comment section below. Again, these are just some random tips for playing Rogue decks competitively that just came to my mind as I was testing different decks. Obviously not just this deck, because this deck is not, you know, super Rogue, but it's also not really meta either, because Shaddolls aren't really meta, but really Invoked and Dogmatica kind of are. But, you know, they're kind of on the fringe. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think about this video. If you have anything you would like to add to the discussion, of course, just comment it down below. I'd love to, you know, have an open discussion with you guys about these things, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Thanks.